I never imagined that the woman I loved like my own daughter would be the one to break my heart into 1,000 quiet pieces. My name is Margaret, but everyone just calls me Maggie. I'm 68 now, and for the last 12 years, Emily, my son Mark's wife, has been the light of my life. From the day Mark brought her home, she felt like family. She'd sit with me in the kitchen for hours, sipping tea while we talked about everything and nothing. She listened when I told old stories about my late husband. She hugged me like she meant it. When Mark and I lost my husband, Emily was the one who held us both up. I thought we had something special. Something safe. That afternoon started like any other. I'd driven over to their house with a bag of groceries and a lemon cake I'd baked that morning. Emily had sounded tired on the phone the day before, so I wanted to help. Mark was at work. It was just the two of us. She opened the door, and right away I noticed her eyes were red. I asked if she was okay. She said yes, just a headache. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd laughed so many times. I set the cake down and reached for her hand. Then she pulled her hand away. "Maggie," she said, so softly I almost didn't hear it. "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. I'd heard those words before from doctors, from my husband the week before he passed. They never bring good news. She looked down at the table. Her voice stayed calm, but every word felt like a small cut. "I'm sorry," she said, "but things have to change." I waited. My heart was already starting to ache, the way it does when you know something precious is slipping away and you can't stop it. She lifted her eyes to mine, and what I saw there wasn't anger. It was something worse, distance. Like she'd already decided. I sat there, frozen, waiting for her to say the words that would change everything forever. How did it come to this? I still don't understand. Hello and welcome. Before we start, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. If these real stories speak to you, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. So enjoy the story. Looking back now, those years feel like a soft blanket wrapped around my heart. Warm. Safe. The kind of life you don't question because it just feels right. My husband, Tom, and I raised Mark in a little blue house on the edge of town. It had a big backyard where Tom taught Mark to throw a baseball and a kitchen that always smelled like fresh bread on Sundays. Tom was the steady one, worked at the mill for 35 years, came home with dirt on his hands and a smile for us. I stayed home, kept the house running, canned tomatoes from the garden every summer. We weren't rich, but we had enough. And we had each other. Mark was our only child. Quiet boy, good heart. He'd sit with me at the kitchen table doing homework while I peeled potatoes. He'd tell me about his day, and I'd listen like every word mattered. Because it did. Tom passed suddenly 12 years ago. Heart attack. One minute he was in the garage fixing the lawnmower, the next he was gone. I thought the grief would swallow me whole. Mark was 28 then, already out on his own, but he came home every night for months. Sat with me on the porch swing. Didn't say much. Just held my hand. That's when Emily came into our lives for real. Mark had met her a couple years earlier at the community college where they both took night classes. She was studying nursing, working days at the diner to pay her way. Pretty girl, dark hair she kept pulled back, soft voice. The first time Mark brought her home for dinner, she helped me clear the table without being asked. Stayed late washing dishes while Mark and Tom talked sports in the living room. I liked her right away. She didn't try too hard. Just fit. They got married in our backyard the spring after Tom died. Simple wedding. White folding chairs, daisies from the garden, Emily in a plain white dress she found on sale. I stood up for Tom's place. Gave Mark away with tears in my eyes, but a smile on my face. Emily hugged me tight afterward. "Thank you, Maggie," she whispered, "for raising such a good man." I told her she was family now. Meant it with everything I had. After the wedding, they bought a little house 10 minutes from mine. 3 bedrooms, yellow siding, big kitchen with an island in the middle. I helped them paint the walls, plant roses out front. Emily would call me most mornings. "Come over for coffee," she'd say. And I would. We'd sit at that island, sunlight coming through the window over the sink. She'd make tea the way I like it, strong, splash of milk. I'd bring cookies or a loaf of banana bread. We'd talk about everything. Her shift at the hospital. Mark's new project at work. Recipes we wanted to try. Sometimes we didn't talk much at all. Just sat quiet, comfortable. She started calling me mom after the first year. Not all the time. Just when it felt right. Like when I'd watch their dog while they went away for a weekend, or when I brought soup when she had the flu. "You're the best mom," she'd say, hugging me. Made my heart full. Family dinners became our thing. Every Sunday, unless someone was sick. Mark would grill chicken or steaks in the backyard. Emily and I would set the table together, blue plates we picked out at the flea market one Saturday. I'd mash the potatoes while she made the gravy. Mark would come in, kiss us both on the cheek, steal a bite of whatever was ready. We'd eat slow. Talk about the week. Laugh over little things. Like the time Mark tried to fix the sink and flooded the kitchen. Or when Emily's patient at the hospital proposed to his nurse right there in the room. Those evenings felt endless. The house filled with light and voices and the smell of home-cooked food. After dinner, we'd sit in the living room. Mark in his chair, Emily curled up next to me on the couch. Sometimes we'd watch an old movie. Sometimes just talk until the stars came out. I never felt alone anymore. Not with them. Emily listened when I talked about Tom. Really listened. Asked questions about the trips we took, the songs we danced to. She kept his picture on the mantle right next to their wedding photo. "You raised a good family," she told me once, squeezing my hand. I believed her. Life just kept going like that. Gentle days. Quiet joys. The kind you think will last forever. I never saw any cracks. Not one. It didn't happen all at once. That's what hurts the most, looking back. It was slow. Little things. So small I told myself I was imagining them. But they added up, like drops in a bucket until one day it overflowed. The first shift I noticed was about 2 years ago. Emily had just gotten a promotion at the hospital, head nurse on her floor. She deserved it. Worked hard for it. I was proud. Brought over a little bouquet of flowers from my garden and a card that said how much she meant to us. She smiled when she saw me at the door. Thanked me. But the hug was quicker than usual. She had to get ready for her shift, she said. We didn't sit down for tea. I left the flowers on the counter and drove home feeling a tiny bit empty. Told myself it was nothing. She was busy. That's all. After that, the calls slowed down. Used to be she'd phone most mornings. Come over if you're free. Now it was once a week. Then every other week. I'd call her instead. Sometimes she'd answer, sound rushed. "Hey, Maggie. Can I call you back?" And she would later, but the talks were shorter. She'd ask about my day, but her mind seemed somewhere else. I didn't push. Didn't want to be a burden. Sunday dinners kept going though. That was our anchor. But even there, things felt different. Emily started checking her phone more at the table. Not a lot. Just glances. Quick scrolls. Mark didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did and didn't say. One evening, I brought my usual pot roast slow-cooked all afternoon. Set it on the island while Emily finished the salad. I reached to help toss it, like always. "I've got it, Maggie," she said. Soft voice. Polite smile. But her hand stayed on the bowl. I stepped back. "Okay, honey." We ate. Conversation was fine. Weather. Mark's work. But when I told a story about Tom, how he used to surprise me with picnics by the river, Emily nodded, but her eyes drifted to the window. Didn't ask any follow-up questions like she used to. After dinner, instead of curling up on the couch with me, she said she had charts to review for work. Went upstairs early. Mark and I sat alone in the living room. He rubbed my shoulder. "She's just tired, Mom. Long week." I nodded. Smiled. But inside, I wondered. Was it really just tiredness? The visits got fewer. I'd still go over sometimes, unannounced like before. Bring a pie or just to say hi. One afternoon, I knocked and Emily opened the door in yoga pants, hair in a messy bun. She looked surprised. "Oh. Hi, Maggie." I held up the bag. "Made too much chili. Thought you might like some." "That's sweet. Thanks." She took the container, but didn't invite me in. Stood there in the doorway. I waited a second. "Everything okay?" "Yeah. Just in the middle of cleaning." I nodded. Drove home with the radio off. Felt the quiet settle in my chest. Another time, family dinner. I arrived a bit early to help set the table. Emily was in the kitchen, phone to her ear. Laughing. Real laughing, the kind that reaches the eyes. She saw me, ended the call quick. Hey, who is that? I asked light. Sounded fun. Just a friend from work. I smiled. Good to have friends. But later, at the table, she was quieter. When I passed the potatoes, our hands brushed. She pulled back a little too fast. Mark talked most of the meal. Filled the gaps. I started noticing the little distances. How Emily wouldn't linger in the kitchen with me anymore. How she'd say, thanks for coming, instead of stay longer. How the seat next to me on the couch stayed empty more often. One Sunday, I brought up the idea of a family trip. Just the three of us. Maybe to the lake where Tom and I used to go. Emily looked at Mark. Then at her plate. That might be nice someday, she said. Careful words. Mark changed the subject. I felt it then. A coolness. Not cold. Just not warm anymore. I'd lie awake some nights. Wondering. Had I done something? Said something? Was I too much? Coming over too often? Talking about Tom too much? But I couldn't think of anything. And I didn't ask. Didn't want to make waves. Just kept showing up. Kept bringing the cakes and the soups. Kept smiling. The silences grew. Not angry ones. Just empty. Like the afternoon I stopped by and found her in the backyard, sitting alone on the porch swing. I walked up, said hello. She looked up. Smiled small. But didn't move over to make room. We sat side by side, not touching. Stared at the roses we'd planted together years ago. Neither of us spoke for a long time. I wanted to ask what was wrong. But the word stuck. Finally, I said, beautiful day. Yes, she answered. That was all. I left after 10 minutes. Drove home with tears I didn't let fall until I was inside my own door. The confusion settled in deep. Like fog. I couldn't see where it was coming from. Why the warmth was fading. But it was. Little by little. Day by day. Until that one afternoon when she finally said the words out loud. But before that day, I just kept hoping I was wrong. Kept hoping it would pass. It didn't. The kitchen was quiet except for the tick of the wall clock. Sunlight fell across the table, catching the crumbs from breakfast. My lemon cake sat untouched between us. The groceries I'd brought were still in the bag by the door. Emily folded her hands in her lap. She didn't look angry. She didn't look mean. She just looked tired. Like she'd been carrying something heavy for a long time. Maggie, she started again, voice soft as ever. I've tried to find the right way to say this. But there isn't one. I waited. My throat felt tight. I couldn't have spoken if I wanted to. She took a slow breath. You've been so good to us. I know that. But over the years, your visits, the way you come over whenever you feel like it started to feel like too much. I don't get space to just be me. Be us. Without feeling like I have to host or explain or anything. The words landed gentle, but they cut deep. I felt them sink in, one by one. She kept going, eyes on the table. I need boundaries, Maggie. Real ones. No more dropping by without calling first. No more assuming you can stay for dinner or spend the whole afternoon. And honestly, I think we should pause the Sunday dinners for a while. Just give Mark and me some room to breathe. I stared at her. My mind went blank. Like someone had pulled a plug and everything warm drained out. Boundaries. Room to breathe. From me. The woman who'd held her when she cried after a hard shift. Who'd sat up all night when she had food poisoning. Who'd loved her like my own. I thought of all the times I'd driven over with soup or bread or just because I missed her voice. I thought of the kitchen island where we'd shared so many quiet mornings. The couch where she used to lean against my shoulder during movies. All of it, too much? My chest ached in a way I hadn't felt since Tom's funeral. A slow, heavy hurt. Not sharp. Just crushing. I wanted to ask why. When it changed. If I'd missed signs. If she'd ever meant any of those hugs, those mom whispers. But nothing came out. She finally looked up. Her eyes were glassy, but steady. I'm sorry if this hurts. I don't want to hurt you. but I have to do this for me. For us. Us. Mark and her. I was suddenly outside that word. I nodded. Slow. Barely. The silence stretched long after her words stopped. Thick. Unbearable. I looked at the cake. At the bag of groceries I'd carried in with so much care. Everything in the room felt far away. Like I was underwater. I don't know how long we sat there. Maybe minutes. Maybe longer. Finally, I found my voice. It came out small. Okay, I said. Just that. She nodded once. Didn't say anything else. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady. I left the cake on the table. Left the groceries by the door. Walked out without looking back. The drive home is a blur. I don't remember the roads. Just the ache spreading through me, quiet and complete. How do you lose a daughter you never really had? I didn't know yet. But in that moment, sitting frozen at her table, I felt it happen. Everything changed. And nothing would ever feel the same again. All of it, too much? My chest ached in a way I hadn't felt since Tom's funeral. A slow, heavy hurt. Not sharp. Just crushing. I wanted to ask why. When it changed. If I'd missed signs. If she'd ever meant any of those hugs, those mom whispers. But nothing came out. She finally looked up. Her eyes were glassy but steady. I'm sorry if this hurts. I don't want to hurt you. But I have to do this for me. For us. Us. Mark and her. I was suddenly outside that word. I nodded. Slow. Barely. The silence stretched long after her words stopped. Thick. Unbearable. I looked at the cake. At the bag of groceries I'd carried in with so much care. Everything in the room felt far away. Like I was underwater. I don't know how long we sat there. Maybe minutes. Maybe longer. Finally, I found my voice. It came out small. Okay, I said. Just that. She nodded once. Didn't say anything else. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady. I left the cake on the table. Left the groceries by the door. Walked out without looking back. The drive home is a blur. I don't remember the roads. Just the ache spreading through me, quiet and complete. How do you lose a daughter you never really had? I didn't know yet. But in that moment, sitting frozen at her table, I felt it happen. Everything changed. And nothing would ever feel the same again. The days after that afternoon blurred into one long quiet. I drove home in a daze, parked in my driveway, and sat in the car for I don't know how long. The house felt bigger when I walked in. Emptier. Tom's chair in the living room still had his old sweater draped over the back, like it always did. I touched it as I passed, but it didn't bring the comfort it usually did. I didn't cry right away. Not really. Just felt this heavy stillness settle over everything. Like the world had slowed down and left me behind. Mark called that evening. His voice was careful. Mom, Emily told me what happened. Are you okay? I said I was. Told him I understood. Didn't want to make him choose sides or feel bad. He said they both loved me. That this was just about needing some space. I said okay again. We hung up soon after. The calls stopped after that. Not angry stopped. Just distant. I'd text Mark sometimes. Thinking of you. He'd reply with a heart emoji or love you, Mom. But no invitations. No, come over for coffee. Sundays were the hardest. Used to be I'd wake up early, start the roast, or bake something special. Now the house stayed silent. I'd make a small meal for myself. Eat at the table alone. Watch the clock tick past the time we'd usually be laughing in their kitchen. Loneliness crept in slow. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that sits with you while you water the plants or fold laundry. I'd think about Emily's words. Boundaries. Room to breathe. At first, they stung fresh every time. Like salt in a cut. But as weeks turned into months, I started reflecting more. Really thinking. Maybe I had leaned too hard. After Tom died, they became my whole world. My safe place. I'd show up because being with them filled the empty spots. Maybe Emily felt that way without saying. Maybe she needed to build her own life without always making room for mine. It didn't make the hurt go away. But it made it softer. Understandable, somehow. I started filling my days differently. Planted new roses in the backyard. The ones Emily and I had picked out years ago were still blooming, but I added more. Read books I'd been meaning to. Joined a little group at the senior center for coffee once a week. Nice folks. Simple talks. Some nights, I'd sit on the porch swing. Think about Tom. How he'd say, "People change, Maggie. Doesn't mean the love wasn't real." I started to forgive. Not out loud. Just in my heart. Emily wasn't wrong for needing space. I wasn't wrong for loving so much. It just shifted. The ache is still there. Quieter now. I miss them both. Miss the warmth of that kitchen island. But I found a kind of peace in the quiet. Strength I didn't know I had. Knowing I can stand in my own home. In my own life. And maybe, someday, things will ease again. I'm learning to be okay with waiting. With just being me. Time has a way of softening the edges. It's been a couple years now since that afternoon in the kitchen. The hurt doesn't sting like it did. It's more like an old bruise, there if I press on it, but mostly quiet. Mark still calls every week. We talk about simple things. His job. My garden. The weather. Sometimes he mentions Emily. She's doing well. Busy with work, friends. I listen. Smile through the phone. Tell him I'm glad. We see each other now and then. Holidays. Birthdays. Planned ahead, of course. The visits are shorter, but nicer in a way. Less expectation. More real conversation. Emily hugs me when I arrive. Calls me Maggie still, but with warmth in her voice again. We don't talk about that day. We don't need to. I've learned something important. Love doesn't always look the way we picture it. Sometimes it needs room to grow in new directions. Boundaries aren't walls, they're just gentle lines that help everyone breathe easier. I needed them too, I see that now. To find my own rhythm again. My days are full in a quieter way. The senior center friends became real ones. We go on little trips. Share potlucks. Laugh over coffee. I planted a whole new flower bed last spring. Roses and daisies, bright against the house. Some evenings, I sit on the porch with a cup of tea. Watch the sunset paint the sky. Think about Tom. About Mark and Emily. About the years we shared. Life changes. People change. But the good parts, the real love, stay tucked in your heart. They don't go away. I'm okay now. More than okay. There's peace in that. And hope too. Always hope. Thank you for watching and being part of this story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more powerful real-life stories. Your support helps this channel grow and reach more hearts. Thank you and see you again soon.